And welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who wants to wish Ronaldinho a very happy birthday. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
I do, but it might take too long for me to get Ronaldo de Assis Moreira. I think that's all of it. Moreira? Something like that. Yeah, it'll take too long, and also I'm still not sure if it's public domain.
With what's public domain?
Had the happy birthday song.
Oh, you can't sing it. You can say it, you just can't sing it.
I think you can now. I feel
Really?
like either it lapsed or those
Let's not risk it.
terrible sisters are dead now, and so it's okay, or something like that. I forget how it works.
Shots
If you trademark
fired.
happy birthday,
Yeah.
come on now. Come on now.
I feel like they should
Plus,
have-
they made it possible for all of those terrible restaurant chains to have all of those terrible birthday songs.
the knockoff birthday
Yes,
songs.
yeah.
Shout out to Cold Stone Creamery.
Oh, those poor people. Yes.
Shall we? So it is Ronaldinho's birthday today.
Yes.
If you could buy him a birthday present, what would you get him?
Oh man, that's I don't know. Maybe just like a compilation of how good he was, just so he can remember. Like, oh yeah, I was really real good.
I would remaster some of those YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You know how he got
Yeah.
there's a lot of Ronaldinho YouTube from like 2005, 2006, but they're all very pixely. I would find someone who could spruce those up a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or just like the
Get them
opening
in HD.
the opening sequence to Goal 2, which I believe
Seen
is.
that?
It's basically the reason why they end up buying Santiago. Why Madrid do is because it's after the game where Ronaldinho destroys Madrid. So it's like all that in black and white slow motion set to Ave Maria is how that movie begins.
That's really...
Yes.
I mean, after watching the original goal, I didn't stick with it.
You didn't miss much.
It's kind
Other
of
than
like
that
watching
one scene where the coach teaches him that the ball is faster than him. That's all you're missing. That's
the
it.
best part. Yeah. It's much like The Hobbit. I watched the first and thought, I'm good.
Yeah, that'll do.
All's good.
That'll do.
All right, today's show
Yeah.
is not Lord of the Rings themed or Ronaldinho themed.
Unfortunately.
It's listener question themed.
Hooray.
Questions about the US national team, England fans, CONCACAF, which way round to pick a team when you put it on the team sheet.
All right.
We're going to get to all that.
All right.
Up first is a question from Luke Carey. Luke wants to know, well, he says, I was watching clips from Iceland v England in the 2016 Euros. I mean, I have a question now. And the question is why.
Yep.
Luke says, I noticed the England flags that had different cities and clubs written on them. What's the purpose of this?
All right. I'm going to take a guess here because I'm assuming that you have either the actual answer or at least an informed opinion, given
Yeah.
that you are from England.
There we go.
I'm going to assume that it's essentially a way to support the national team, but also showing off where you're from or who you support. So you probably have like more local supporters groups.
Yes.
And the other thing I thought about was if you have some of the larger clubs who play in Europe, that probably also does double duty because then you can have, say, a Manchester United flag that you can then take to playing away games in Romania and you're doubly covered.
Yes, you have to buy two different flags.
Yeah, you're
I
good.
mean, that's basically it. Yeah, is when people used to go and watch England, they go as a group. Like, can you be a group of Wolves supporters? You do see Wolverhampton
Yeah.
Wanderers, like the word just inlaid over the top of an England flag, and it is just local pride or club pride. That's it. That's really all there is to it. You're supporting your country, but you're also showing your team or city colours.
Yes, by showing off the crest of a crusader. But it is pretty impressive when you see all of them like in a line with everybody behind them. So you've got like the red and the white with all of the different cities and clubs and towns and what have you, because it does kind of show this idea of like, oh, they're from all over the place, but they're
Yeah.
all together supporting the one nation.
But the weird part to me
Or country.
is that even when you go and watch the national team, people still bring those sort of club loyalties, which
Yep.
to me is it's one of the problems with the England national team, but with the culture of the England national team as well. For example, during the Lampard-Gerrard days, the long 10-year debate, Liverpool fans all thought Gerrard should play. Chelsea fans all thought Lampard should play. Do you know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
really get those club loyalties really bleed into what people think about with the national team in a way that I still don't think happens in the United States, right?
That's what. Well, you just can't have you don't have like as much blank space on the American flag, so you just don't have enough room to write on it. That's the.
You can
that's the
write
big
across one of the bars.
Yeah, but it's going to be all small. Like you've only got like 13 stripes there.
I
You don't
see.
have like 4 big white patches to write on.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It is nicely designed for.
Yeah, because I
to
see it
write.
with Scotland flags too, and there you've got big blue patches that you
Yep.
can write in white lettering, and it works quite well.
It's good flag thoughts.
Yeah.
Good flag thoughts. Thanks to Luke for the question. You ready for the next question?
Sure.
It's from Zach Lippert.
Shall I ask it?
Oh,
Since
yeah,
you
go
asked
for
the
it.
first one. All right, Zach Lippert. I don't know if you heard that before. When national teams go through youth movements, which the U.S. arguably is doing right now, how do they decide which veterans to keep around? Does a Dax McCarty or a Brad Guzan have a significant future with the team? Matt Beasler, DeMarcus Beasley, Graham Zusi, Dempsey, Bradley, and Altidore all have had major roles in the past, but are being or will be forced out by younger players. So what determines who stays and who gets axed?
It's a really good question, especially for this moment with the US national team. There is not a blanket answer, right? And that's why I'm always against the thing of like, all right, if they're going to be over 30 in November 2022, then they're out. Like,
I would hope there is. And I hope like the page one on DOS reboot wasn't like, get Dax McCarty out of there. Like, what? That was an issue?
Not even German. So I would say that it's about the depth of talent at your position and whether you can realistically contribute in the near future, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, for example, someone like Matt Beasler, even though he's, say, younger than Clint Dempsey, I think there's so much up-and-coming young centre-back talent coming through. And he's not quite this sort of, he doesn't play for Barcelona, right? He plays for Sporting KC. And he's never had a successful European career. I think it's weirdly okay now to move on from Matt Beasler, even though he still has a couple of years left to give, because you've got, say, Matt Miazga coming through.
And I think the difference...
And others.
Yeah, true.
Yeah?
I think the difference is that you can go through youth movements while still being in a strong period. So you can say, have Germany right now, for example, where you have that sort of proven core that have won the World Cup, that are always very competitive, but you've got young players coming through, and then it is sort of a debate about like, ooh, he's still very good, but we've got this young center back. And so you've got that issue there, whereas with the United States, I think if you're coming off of the recent unpleasantness, as I'm still choosing to call it, and you've got some of those people who maybe still have a couple of years, but also maybe have that sort of like, I don't know what the word would be here, but it's basically they're not in a situation that they were before where it was like, oh, they're going to qualify for the World Cup.
Yes.
Then we'll see what happens. Right now it's sort of like, well, they didn't qualify for World Cup, so maybe now we do need to start kind of reevaluating.
Here's a good example. Dax McCarty, I think, is a good example. And not that these two are the exact same players, but if we were going to the World Cup in the summer, you maybe would put more faith in Dax McCarty than, say, Christian Roldan. Right? But if you're picking a squad, to start building the next team, whether that's to compete at the 2019 Copa America or Gold Cup or beyond, you would start picking Christian Roldan over Dax McCarty. Right? And it's kind of harsh on Dax, but that is the way it has to be, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think with the caveat that it also very much depends on who comes in and takes charge.
Yes.
Because if you have a manager who has very little experience with the U.S. national team or with Major League Soccer, there might be a sort of, look, everybody is still eligible. We're going to take away some of like the obstacles that have been put in the place of other people, and now it's everybody's available. Let me evaluate all the talent.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody who has a bit more familiarity, you might have some of that either baggage or some like kind of preconceived notions about like, no, he's a little bit past it. He doesn't quite do what I want. And that's the other, I would say, big influence there is what the manager's looking for from the talent.
And then the way it actually does happen, mostly, is that players retire.
Yeah.
Right? So Wayne Rooney kind of solved a lot of problems for Gareth Southgate by just retiring from international football. He no longer has to make that tough choice about whether Wayne Rooney's got it anymore, right? I think Clint Dempsey will be an interesting one when Dave Sarachan or the next US national team manager starts picking a full-strength squad. If Dempsey's like still scoring a load of goals in Major League Soccer but hasn't retired from international football, it's going to be a question that he has to answer at every press conference, right? And we don't know. We haven't seen Clint Dempsey announce that he's retiring, right? Same for Tim Howard, maybe.
No, we haven't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney's definitely retired? He's not potentially eligible for this World Cup?
I mean, he's eligible because retirement's not you don't like file an official thing, right? I mean, he could at the last minute say, hey, I'm available again, and Southgate will say yes or no. Or Southgate could go to him and say, hey, you interested?
Then I must
do you remember Capello tried to get Scholes to come back for a tournament?
Yeah, that didn't go so well.
So
but I guess
happen.
I couldn't remember if he had said, like, I will retire after the World Cup, even if I'm selected or not, or if it was, I'm retiring right now, so that
might have been one then the other. Yeah.
Okay. But either way, I think you're absolutely right that players will do that. And you're right that it will continue to cause problems because we saw in the most recent press conference that Dave Sarachan got asked about Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore and some of those veterans.
The Josies and the Michaels.
And you'll have to make that decision at some point as to whether or not you want to bring them back in. My guess is that we do see Josie and Michael Bradley. My guess is maybe we don't see Clint Dempsey under Dave Sarachan. And
that's partly, I think, because Dempsey's older than Altidore and Bradley, right?
Yeah.
And also, this is an interesting one to me. There's not great depth at centre forward for the United States, right? So to me, Altidore is an absolute, he's a player we need, I would argue. You can get competition with him from Bobby Wood and maybe Josh Sargent in the future, you know what I'm saying? But he's still one of the primo US strikers, right?
Yeah.
I would argue Michael Bradley is the same, but I can also see the argument that there's so many players coming through, right?
Yep.
There's Weston McKennie, there's Tyler Adams, and all those guys coming through. Keaton Parks. Maybe there's becomes a time when there are so many up and comers, and Michael Bradley's in the way that then it makes sense for Bradley to decide to retire.
I would say it this way, that like right now, and I would say in the past couple of years, the only player we have had who is like definitely number one, absolutely starting, at least in the last like 18 months or so, is Christian Pulisic.
Yep.
And I would say that he is probably a player, as long as his career continues as it has been, he will retire whenever he wants to, and that's when he'll stop getting called.
52.
Yeah. But outside of that,
the American Stanley Matthews.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But outside of that, a lot of those names on that list are players who weren't automatic selections. They were like, I could see them starting, I could see them in the squad. Maybe they don't make the squad.
Like Beasley or McCarty.
And I think that's part of it as well, that it's easier for them to sort of not necessarily come out and say, okay, I'm done, but for it to be like, well, you weren't going to be automatically selected, so maybe you just get phased out a little bit. Whereas those big name players, the players who are like automatic selections, it seems like more often than not, it's those players making the decision about, okay, I've played long enough, I'm good to go.
Otherwise it gets awkward. Right?
Well, there is that.
Well, can I mention one weird one,
Sure.
which is that after Italy failed to qualify for the World Cup, the failed playoff against Sweden, Gigi Buffon, legendary goalkeeper, announced his retirement. Right? Luigi Di Biagio is the new coach of Italy. They have friendlies coming up, one of them against England next week. He's recalled Buffon and asked him to play again. And as I understand it, one of the reasons was that he wanted, as he's going to start rebuilding some pride in the team and rebuilding the team, he wanted an old head around, right? Which is interesting. Buffon was captain, right? Just based on age, I believe. We'll talk about goalkeeper captains later today. But you've got like Donnarumma coming through. You would think it was time to hand it off to the very definition of an up-and-comer, right? Teenage goalkeeper who everyone's excited about. And yet Di Biagio wanted the experience of Buffon in camp because he thought it would help, as I understand it, help steady the team as they go through this transition. So it's not always as obvious as it seems.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I understand why you would want that, because maybe this is just my love of Gigi Buffon coming through, but like I have that idea
hard not to, right?
That he was like, yeah, okay, I want other young players to get a chance. You know, my time has come to an end. But then as soon as he's recalled, you totally would expect Gigi Buffon to be like, yes, for club and country.
Count me in.
I'm in, yeah.
All right, so I hope we answered Zach's question. Next question comes from Shane Carlson, and it is about the CONCACAF Champions League. You ready? So Shane says, I was watching the second leg of Chivas de Guadalajara versus the Seattle Sounders in the CONCACAF Champions League. The announcer said that Chivas hasn't won CONCACAF's biggest prize since 1962. From my understanding, the CCL is rather new. So what competition or competitions was the commentator referencing? Okay. I should say I've done the research here, Taylor, but I invite you to take a guess.
I can take a guess, which is my guess would be that if you look at Europe for a moment, it has not always been the Champions League. I think that was 93, 92, thereabouts. Whenever the Premier League rebranded, it was around that same time. Before that, it was the
European Cup.
European Cup, thank you. I was about to say the European Championships, and I was like, no. But the idea then is that like if you've won 4 European Cups and 1 Champions League, you've won 5 Champions League. That idea. So I'm assuming it's the same thing here, where there was a rebrand, but before that, there was some sort of Champions Cup, Championship, Champions League, something like that.
You got it.
There we go.
So, as I understand it, the CONCACAF Champions League started in 2008.
Okay.
From 1962 until 2008, it was called the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
There we go.
It's almost as if CONCACAF is kind of looking across the Atlantic and being like, what you do? Oh, yeah.
We'll have some of that.
We'll have some of that, yeah. So, Chivas de Guadalajara won the inaugural CONCACAF Champions Cup in 1962.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was the first one.
They finished runners-up in 1963 to a Haitian team called Racing Club Haitian. Because this is a crazy story, and it kind of illustrates how tough things are in CONCACAF, right? I'm really just excited to tell the story. The Haitian team couldn't get visas to go and play in Mexico, so the game was postponed. And by the time that CONCACAF had rescheduled the game, Chivas de Guadalajara were on tour in Europe, said, we can't make it. And CONCACAF said, all right, well, Racing Club Haitian are CONCACAF champions.
Wow.
And if you look through the history of, so I looked at a quick list of the winners from like 62 up until 2008. It's a lot more variety. There are El Salvadorian teams winning it. Defense Force, the Trinidad and Tobago team, won the CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's not the sort of endless procession of Mexican champions that we have right now.
And that would have been even if the Champions League, what did you say started in?
2008.
Oh, so then that would be what DC United and Rochester and Richmond Kickers all won. I think.
The Richmond Kickers did not win the CONCACAF Champions League.
No, they didn't. You're right. They won the US Open Cup. Yeah.
Cup,
Yeah.
Which would have qualified them for it.
There you go.
But so, DC United won it in 98, the Champions Cup.
Rochester won the US Open Cup, didn't they? Not the Champions Cup.
The LA Galaxy won it in 2000. A MLS team or an American team has not won it since it was changed to the CONCACAF Champions League in 2008.
So change it back.
No, we're getting closer than ever.
That's clearly the problem.
Tyler Adams has got it on lockdown.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel better. One more question, and then we'll do something else.
Okay.
And then we'll get back to questions. Michael Fisk, what is a check to? Who are examples of players that do this well? Thanks, guys, says Michael.
What is a check to? So I'm going to assume that what Michael is referring to is what we call the check away and check to.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, so the check to is when you essentially just come and show for the ball, right? I think, I'm not sure the etymology, but it's basically, I'm checking, you can find me, right? And the check away is when you sort of, you almost fake a run in behind, right? And you take a defender away to drag them that way. Then you bounce back the other way like you're on an elastic band.
And that would be the check too.
And then you've got a bit of space to receive the ball. It is one of the most basic but essential moves in soccer that any half-decent professional or even half-decent amateur should know how to do.
Yeah,
right?
because just like moving towards the person who's passing you the ball makes sense because then you're moving towards the ball, you're not standing static and allowing the defender to intervene.
But your defender can just go with you. If you just move towards it, he can go with you, right?
Right. So then the idea is that by checking away, moving a little bit away, you're forcing the defender either to back up or to adjust what he or she is doing, and then you can change pace aggressively, get to that ball quickly, create a little bit of space. But you can also just do the check away. There are forwards. Leo Messi is very good at that, about like sliding away, and then sprinting in behind the defense. Like you can do that, especially if you're just looking to create space or keep space between the defense.
Yep. Okay. So we've established the importance of it, right? And it's the reason Taylor sort of, when you do our coaching for our team, you run check away, check two drills a lot to get everybody doing it.
Well, because number one, it gets everybody doing it. Number two, it gets everybody moving to meet the ball. That's a big thing that it takes a long time for people to get. But it changes things a little bit because if you're just passing back and forth, it's easy to pass back and forth. But if you're now sprinting towards that pass under pressure, you learn how to either settle the ball or pass the ball with one touch, and it makes you kind of play under pressure a bit more. It gets you to move the ball faster.
All right, so to the second part of Michael's question, what are examples of players who do this well? If you were looking for someone to do this, who would you be looking at on your TV or in a game?
I actually didn't really have an answer for that. I watched a bunch of players, and I would say because it is something that is kind of ubiquitous across all professional soccer, you'll see it in every single game.
If you can't do it, you won't make it, right? You will not make it as a professional footballer.
The one who I've seen doing it kind of consistently, I would say, would be Paulinho for Barcelona, because
that's interesting.
When he's playing at the tip of that diamond, he is the one who can kind of drop into midfield to link up play. So you'll see him drop in, receive a ball, pass it out wide, and then recycle that run back so that he's then in the attack.
Interesting.
But you'll see Luis Suarez do that quite a bit. He's very good about dropping in because Leo Messi tends to make like lateral or aggressive runs forward, and he makes a lot of different types of runs forward, but he doesn't do a lot of like checking away then dropping in to receive the ball. Suarez does a good bit of that, as does Andres Iniesta. So I think Barcelona are a good squad to watch.
So I've got a mental image. I haven't checked footage. I've got a mental image of Suarez basically standing offside, but then his check two is to like come back onside and then go, like even go a little bit deeper, come and get a touch on the ball and lay it off for a Barcelona teammate.
Exactly.
So he's a good example.
And like another way to look at it would be, say you have a striker who is sort of isolated. Say you're playing a 4-2-3-1, your 2-3 in that 4-2-3-1 has maybe had to drop back a little bit, and suddenly there's a big gap between those five players and the forward. A lot of times what ends up happening is when you clear it, you're just hoofing it long to that striker, and then you're in a 1v4 situation if you're the attacker. But if that attacker, say, checks away, then drops in really fast, that ball is played into feet, and now maybe he's created a little bit of space. He's got an overlapping run from the fullback. He can, like, one touch play it out wide of the channel, and suddenly you've triggered that kind of counterattack by keeping the ball in possession without having to hold it up and wait for other runners.
Yes. All right. Some free coaching advice from Taylor
Mm-hmm.
Rockwell. All right. We got 3 more questions to
We sure
go.
do.
But first, today's show is sponsored by, can you guess, Taylor?
I'm going to say Squarespace.
That is correct. Today's
the space
show
that is square
is sponsored by the space that is square. I guess that does mean your website, right? They'll make a Squarespace for your website.
Yeah.
But you can also scroll down, so it can actually be as long as you want it.
I didn't really put that one together, but yes, that
makes
is what
sense,
they're doing.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the shape of your laptop screen at the very least. So Squarespace is
more of a rectangle.
The platform on which we host our website.
Yeah.
The listener questions we are answering today were submitted at totalsoccershow.com/questions. questions using a form and an embed and then a connection to a spreadsheet that all came as part of our Squarespace template. There are world-class templates available for free at squarespace.com.
Yeah, and I would say another good example would be with the scouting reports when I got tired of having to look up age, position, club, nationality.
And go through all your emails.
You just add those fields really fast and they all populate, and now you've cut down my time.
And I think so. It's not just about spreadsheets and forms, but that ends up what we like to use our website for, right? Because our website is deliberately, what's the phrase, like minimalist, kind of, right? We don't fill it with a load of images. We kind of just want it to be as simple and clean and functional as possible, just like my passing.
Indeed.
But if you want to do something fancier, you want to get a bunch of photos on there, there are absolutely beautiful portfolio templates that will work much better for you.
Mm-hmm. If you're all about the pretty and not about the minimalism. Yes.
If you would like to get a discount, you can go to squarespace.com, head to squarespace.com. You get a free trial. You can build your website, really get a feel for how it all works. Then when you're ready to launch it, use the offer code
I believe it's when you're ready to square the space.
When you're ready to square the space.
Yeah.
Use the discount code TSS and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. You're welcome, Taylor.
All right. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's program. Daryl, I believe I asked you the last question, so have at it from Taylor Judd.
Taylor Judd wants to know, can you be sent off with 2 yellows in which advantage is played on the first caution and you commit the second foul before having been shown the first yellow? For example, no stoppage of play between earning 2 yellows. And has this ever happened in top-tier football?
The answer is, again, this is one where Daryl has the research. I do not. I believe the answers are yes and yes. I cannot remember the specific game, but I absolutely remember watching that happen. The other one that can happen is that you can get a yellow and then a straight red in the same sequence of play, because you'll have those moments where, like, maybe it was intentional and it just kind of looked like, that was a little bit reckless, that's going to be a yellow. But then that card, like, the foul isn't called for whatever reason, and then the 2-footed challenge happens, and then it's like, oh, okay, that was a yellow and also a straight red.
But let's focus on Taylor's, the other Taylor's example of 2 yellows. So what would happen is you would commit a foul, but the opposition team has advantage. So the ref thinks, I'm going to yellow card that guy, but I'm going to wave play on, I'm going to wave advantage, right? So arms out, palms up.
So a quick, like, hypothetical example, because again, I don't have the specifics, is say Daryl has dribbled by me, he's launching a counterattack, I'm the defender, so I pull his jersey back. That would be a yellow for doing that professional foul to try to, like, stop that play. But then if I don't do it, if I'm not strong enough, or Daryl's just too strong, and you pass it and get away, and then the ball comes back to you, I've pursued you, and I, like, clip you before you can get a shot off, that's probably also going to be a professional foul. That would be 2 in 1 sequence. There you go.
There you go, and you would get the 2 yellows and a red. So the answer is yes, that definitely can happen, and we know this because it definitely did happen in 2015.
All right.
It was a Euro 2016 qualifier between Northern Ireland and Hungary.
Okay.
You look like you're going to try and guess which player was sent off.
No, I can't do it.
Okay, the referee was Turkish. The player sent off was Northern Ireland's Chris Baird.
Okay.
So it was kind of what you were talking about. It was a Hungary counter-attack after a Northern Ireland attack. And he kind of clipped someone, Baird clipped someone as Hungary launched the counter-attack. But obviously the referee is thinking, book you later, they're on the attack, we're going to play advantage, right? As the ball gets to midfield, Baird has got somewhat heroically chased back and then commits a not very good slide tackle that is a second foul. This time, the player who had the ball is down. So obviously, there's no more advantage to be played. Referee blows the whistle. Here's what he does. He points back to where the original foul happened, and shows a yellow. Then he points to where the foul just happened, right in front of him, shows another yellow. Then he reaches in, gets a red card, shows Chris Baird that red card. So a clear example of 2 yellows without a stoppage in play.
Yeah, and you'll see that just with the usual yellow card, if they've let play continue, you'll see the ref then go back, point in the rough vicinity of where the foul took place, and issue that yellow. So
I really like that question from Taylor Judd, not least because it had a very easy but interesting answer. By the way, I loved the questions. Remember a little while back we put out an appeal that was essentially ask us just questions that you want to know the answer to that you wonder about, as opposed to, hey, it'd be nice if you guys like named your top 100 players of all time, which is not possible in a podcast. I really enjoy these types of questions.
Me too. We have 2 more to go. I think I'm going to ask you both of them, starting with Nick Pigot. One or the other. I'm a new listener from the UK and a Sounders fan. I would like to know how that happened. Why are cup finals, such as the forthcoming CONCACAF Champions League final and the MLS Cup final, not played on neutral grounds as they are in Europe?
I'm going to say it's a matter of getting the fans there.
Correct.
That's basically it, right? Like, the Champions League final, if you put it in, say, Istanbul, and you know that Liverpool and Milan fans, we don't know who's going to be there, but in the end it's Liverpool and Milan fans, they're going to be into it enough to go and fill that stadium, right? If you had a CONCACAF
or just that it's enough of a spectacle that people from around the world would want to see the best players in the world go play that game.
So I think, it's maybe it's kind of Major League Soccer and then CONCACAF admitting that these games aren't a big enough spectacle for people to travel to them, right? If the CONCACAF Champions League final was in Costa Rica and it was between a Mexican team and an American team, we don't know that enough of the fans would both make an effort to go and get there.
I'll put it this way, like I imagine if you played the NBA Finals in London, you would sell that out because it's the NBA Finals. Even if it's like not as popular of a sport as, say, soccer is around the world, it's still going to be these big-name players, this sports spectacle that you might not otherwise get. Whereas if you had like the EuroLeague final, you might not have that. Even if it is in a neutral venue, it's maybe not going to be as well attended as, say, the NBA final would be. It's the same principle here. Is like you're going to get like the biggest sports spectacle in Europe, maybe less so in the CONCACAF Champions League or MLS Cup.
So MLS Cup is always what the highest seed gets to host, basically, and then you're going to have all those home fans will get to go watch that team. The away fans have to travel. But if it was it could be two East Coast teams, right? The MLS, I couldn't. He'd be Eastern Conference, Western Conference, right? But it's a long way for people to travel.
There was a time when it could have been two.
Yes.
Two Eastern? I forget which one it was. Or two Western.
Thing, I got confused.
Yeah, it was odd. It was odd. But the other thing I was going to say was I imagine that from an MLS standpoint, they would say it's also designed to reward play throughout the season because obviously the number one seed gets the first round bye. They get like a bit more of an advantage. But if you're the top seed throughout the season, if you've earned that, then you've earned the right to host that the final.
I believe Major League Soccer have experimented with all kinds of things.
That sounds familiar.
And I'm pretty confident. I haven't researched this, and I feel like I should have. CONCACAF Champions League, I believe, is 2 legs. The final. It's you host one, and then you go away, and the other team hosts as well.
I believe you are.
So it's over 2 legs, and then I guess both teams get to get some home revenue, right?
Yeah, that's always good. That's always good. Final question then comes from Ellie, who says, a few shows back, Daryl stated that he doesn't believe goalkeepers should be captains. That seems racist. And that he listed his squads from top to bottom. That's also pretty bad, Daryl. Keeper at top of the page, forwards at bottom. Both of these suggestions came as a surprise to Taylor. That would be me. And I'm sure numerous listeners. And Daryl stated they would talk about it in a different episode. I have intently listened to every show since, much as I did before, to figure out why Daryl feels this way. Recently, you both asked that listener questions come in the form of questions. So why does Daryl list his squads opposite of what we see in traditional listings? And why does he feel goalkeepers should not be captains? And what does Taylor have to say in response to this?
Okay, Taylor, before I tell you why I think those things, which one would you like to hear first?
Probably the goalkeepers. Let's start with goalkeepers.
Okay, so I'm not as confident in this as I used to be because my conception of a captain has changed since leaving England, right? But my original thought back in the day was that the captain is the leader on the field who has to talk to everybody, has to motivate everybody, and that a goalkeeper is essentially too far away to do that. You know what I mean? Because so the basic thinking would be goalkeeper is way far away from the rest of the team, especially the forwards. It's impossible for a goalkeeper to, shout encouragement or instructions or advice all the way up to a centre forward.
I mean, that said, I was playing goal this weekend.
Right.
I was yelling at everybody.
Yeah, but sometimes you had to relay it through
That's
me,
true.
right? Because I was slightly farther ahead
my
of me.
voice got sore.
Right, exactly. So your voice got sore in a way that it doesn't when you play centre midfield and coach our team, right? My thinking on this has changed a little bit in that I don't think anymore that you need to have a captain who's yelling at everybody and is the sort of the sole leader on the team.
Yeah.
I've really started to think of captaincy as a more ceremonial, almost like ambassadorial type role. Like, for example, Gigi Buffon when he plays for Italy, right? And if your team doesn't have leaders on the field who are capable of encouraging each other, then you're probably in a bad spot to begin with. And having one guy, I think it's a very English, old-fashioned English mentality of you have this one Roy of the Rovers hero who's going to lead your team to victory, and he needs to be out there barking orders at the troops.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I would also say that I think I used to kind of agree with you more, or old Daryl more, about goalkeepers because I was operating under the misconception.
You mean young Daryl?
Yes. Not as wise, Daryl. Still wise, just not as wise. I was operating under the misconception that part of the captain's job is to be the person, the conduit for the officials. So the official wants your team to calm down or wants to talk to you. And we still see that like, like your captain will come running up and shove somebody away, but then they'll be the one to talk to the referee.
Is that not true? I thought the captain could talk to the referee.
They can, but it's an unofficial thing, right? The official role of captain, as we've discussed previously, is like to do the coin toss for penalties, I think. And there's like one more role in there that's very
exchange
odd.
Pennants.
Yeah, something like that. But there is not really that.
Do the press conference.
Yes, that does happen too. But there isn't anything in the rules about this one player is allowed to speak to the official.
Yeah.
I think that's something that has happened over time. So you don't have, theoretically don't have 11 players surrounding the ref screaming. You have the one guy who comes up and sort of serves as the ambassador, if you will.
Yep.
Since that isn't an official rule, and I thought it used to be, then I'm sort of like, well, I've seen plenty of players talk to the referee at different times. I don't think I've ever seen a referee say, like, no, I'm not talking to you, only the guy with the armband.
Yep.
So I think, again, that makes me more inclined to say that if you want, like, a strong leader who is capable of maybe like really injecting some energy into the team, I do think that's a goalkeeper. So I understand why you would
really?
want. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because just imagine, like, how many times have you seen a goalkeeper pull off an amazing save and been like, okay, yeah, like, let's get back into this. Like, okay, we got to like reward that performance. And the goalkeeper can then like hop up and scream at people and organize that defense and get people amped up. I do think that that's a good place for a captain to be.
Fair
Not
enough,
always,
then.
but sometimes.
So I think when I said this originally as well, which probably wasn't that long ago, right, based on Ellie's email, I may have been slightly tongue-in-cheek just referencing that old way of thinking. I genuinely don't believe that strongly anymore. I'm quite happy for goalkeepers to be captains.
I just think you don't like goalkeepers. That's clearly the problem here. All right, so then we move to the – I know you do. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But we move to the other question about why you list the teams the way you do. And just to clarify or just to reiterate, what tends to happen when we draw out our formations is that Taylor, start mine at bottom. So goalkeeper at bottom, defense, midfield, forward. Daryl tends to start his with goalkeeper at the top of the page, defense, midfield, forward at the bottom of the page. And for that, he is wrong and weird.
So Ellie's asking me essentially, why do I do this, right? And here's the honest thing. I didn't know why I did this. When we first talked about this, because we've talked about this off air like several times, right? I just thought, there's just two ways of doing it, and it doesn't matter. Like some people do it this way, some people do it the other way. So I went looking for examples.
See, I still think that's an acceptable answer.
Let me finish my sentence. I went looking for examples of people doing it my way, like 50% of the time. They're not out there. Everybody goes goalkeeper at the bottom, forwards at the top. Yeah. So I just couldn't find many examples to support my argument that this is just like one of the two ways of doing it.
Can I just say, first off, that I have been in that position, and it's the worst. When you're like, this is how some people do it, certainly, and you just keep looking, and then maybe you find one, and it's like, well, the Finnish third division does it that way. I can't be alone. Like,
all right. So I'm now willing to officially accept on air that the correct way of doing it is to have your forwards at the top, because it just makes sense that your forwards are forward, right?
Yeah.
So what we get into instead is, why did I start doing it the way I did it? Yeah. So at first I thought, okay, maybe I've like seen it on TV at some point, that maybe they used to list the goalkeepers at the top and the forwards at the bottom on TV.
Yeah, shift that blame, baby.
Couldn't find any, right? Then I thought, where else have I seen stuff? I played a lot of Championship Manager and Football Manager when I was younger, and I thought, maybe, because you do a lot of picking your team and agonising over it. Grey hair gaming, we'll know. You pick. Maybe that screen, which I just spent a lot of time with, goes that way round. Goalkeepers at the bottom. Goalkeepers at the top, forwards at the bottom.
I feel like we're getting a long explanation that ends with you being like, I don't know where this came from.
I know where this came from.
Okay.
So I think I know where this came from. Championship Manager, Football Manager does not do that. So that's not the answer. So then I started thinking, okay, well, when have I been writing out teams this way? And what I've realised is, I've been like captaining and managing various amateur teams for like 20 years now, on and off. And I think because I'm a defender and a centre-back, I just started doing it, like literally building out from the back. Like I would, somewhat selfishly, write my name in first because I knew where I was going to play. And I'd know where my goalkeeper was, right? Because you really usually only have one goalkeeper on like a Sunday team like we play for. And so I put the goalkeeper in, and I'd start at the top of the page just because that's where you normally start writing stuff. And it's more about, because I started with the defenders and the goalkeeper, and I started at the top of the page, I started doing it that way.
I think all of that, the answer then is just that it's because that's where you usually start writing. Because I do the same thing. I build out of the back, even if I played more as an attacker. But I would always start from the bottom of the page, but I would always start with goalkeeper, then defense.
Yeah.
But it might just be that, you're used to writing at the top of the page to begin, so that's where you begin.
I think so. I didn't even realize that. That's basically it, right?
I think
writing starts at the top of the page. So start with, but I'm just thinking defender, goalkeeper first. So then top of the page, and then down we go.
See, I like to think that it was like you would like plan the other team, like figure out what the other team was doing, and so then you're the defender looking at the other team, so then striker comes at the bottom of the page.
That would be a much better answer. I would have researched the opposition, I'd write them in pencil, and then write my team over the top to go up against them. Yeah.
Exactly.
The answer's not as good as that.
No, not so much. Not so much. But again, I genuinely still think that like either way is fine.
Do you? Because that's not the impression I got.
I'm just happy to know that I am right. So yeah, I think either one is okay as long as at the end of the day, my way is better.
I want to say thank you to Ellie for asking that question, but I'm not sure now. I don't like having to admit that I was wrong. Man, this show opened with Iceland versus England at Euro 2016 and ends with me doing things wrong when I pick teams.
Well, don't worry, because it's not the end of the show.
That's
because we still have some scouting to get to.
But first let me say thank you to Luke and Zach and Shane and Michael and Taylor and Nick and Ellie. Okay. And if anybody out there would like to ask a question for future Total Soccer shows, we do this about once a week, right? TotalSoccerShow.com/questions is where you can ask. And if you're a $10 a month or more subscriber, we guarantee to answer one question per month.
We sure do. Now, we also guarantee to read out some scouting reports if they're submitted. Daryl, I want you to know we're going to start at the top of the page for this one, just so you know.
Yeah. That's odd.
We're going to start with Jeff and Sam Huffman scouting Mukwele Akele.
Oh, we're starting top of the page with an attacker, I see.
Yes. Yeah, of course. 21-year-old American attacker for Villarreal C, not a goalkeeper. 4 more games, 4 more starts from Mukwele, punctuated by a sweet steal, run, cross, assist for the game winner in a 2-1 win over Sia. Silla. I'm saying Sia.
The singer?
Is that Seal? Is that what you're going for?
No, Sia.
Sia is the thing. Oh, yeah, she's SIA, isn't she?
Yeah.
And I still don't know what she looks like. Whether his recent positive results, coupled with his speed and tidy play on the ball, will result in a move up the ladder has yet to be seen. But with his contract ending in June, it seems like a move up or move out situation should happen soon. I also want to add that I don't know how I feel right now because I went with Seal over Sia. And maybe that says something about how involved I am in pop culture.
Michael Curry is scouting Haji Wright, the 19-year-old American attacker on loan at Sandhausen from Schalke. I haven't read it yet, but last we checked, it wasn't going well, was it? Haji came on in the 68th minute in the 3-2 loss against VfL Bochum. It's going slightly better because he wasn't making the matchday squad last time we heard.
I think when it's that short, you should be obligated to read end of report, like just to really get across that not much else happened. Russell Varner scouting Hugo Arellano, the 20-year-old American center back for the LA Galaxy, or more accurately, Los Dos. Hugo started in Los Dos' 2-0 loss to Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC on Saturday, and the defense as a whole did not look good, with Colorado running riot on several occasions. Arellano also picked up a yellow in the 56th minute.
James Robinson is scouting John Requejo Jr., the 21-year-old American left-back for Los Dos. John Requejo Jr. signed with Los Dos and played 90 in that loss to Colorado that we mentioned above. That's nearly 90 more minutes than he got during his 3 years with Tijuana. His debut was solid, though he possibly could have tracked back better for the Switchbacks' first goal.
I love you, Daryl. Connor Siegel scouting Brooks Lennon, the 20-year-old American winger/fullback for Real Salt Lake. American Soccer Twitter had its wish granted on Saturday night as Brooks finally lined up for RSL at right back in Petke's 4-2-3-1, taking on the New York Red Bulls in what this writer is dubbing the #PlayerKids Derby. Lennon had his first standout MLS performance of 2018. On the offensive side of the ball, Brooks's link-up play down the right with Jefferson Severino produced some of RSL's more threatening moves of the day. Defensively, he rose to the challenge right from the jump, providing 3 fantastic tackles and forcing an important goal kick in the first half. Lennon and RSL came away with the crucial 3 points at home, winning 1-0 over RBNY.
Right back of the future. That was a Matt Doyle prediction, by the way, that I kind of borrowed for the very specific prediction show.
That's a word.
Paul Braff is scouting Anthony Fontana, the 18-year-old American midfielder for the Philadelphia Union. Check your enthusiasm, Paul says, spelled C-Z-E-C-H.
Paul also put in parentheses, that was for Daryl.
I love it. Thank you. Czech midfielder Borek Dokal made his debut for the Philadelphia Union, relegating young Anthony Fontana to the bench until the 77th minute in the Union's 0-0 draw with the Columbus (save the) crew. When Fontana came on, he showed a lot of enthusiasm but didn't get much help going forward. Coach Jim Curtin has said that he is interested in giving the kids playing time and has hinted at playing Fontana and Dokal together. We shall see.
I'm just going to point this out. We had a quiet sound-free recording session until a pun happened. Then all of a sudden it got real loud outside.
The pun police?
Just saying, it's the pun police. Landon Cotham scouting Handwala Bwana, the 18-year-old attacking midfielder for the Seattle Sounders. Handwala didn't play very well against FC Dallas on Sunday, but the rest of the team also played poorly, so hopefully it's not a sign of his future.
So on average, he's one of the better players.
Yeah, it works out. Last week, Landon was surprised not to see Handwala in the Champions League squad against Chivas, but after a little research, Landon learned that he wasn't allowed to travel to Mexico due to his current visa status. Restrictions like this are sometimes placed on people who are seeking residency status in the United States, so hopefully that means Bwana is working on becoming USMNT eligible.
Interesting. Does that also pose problems when he goes to Canada?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I believe that means he gets awarded the CONCACAF Champions League, I think, if your information about the Haiti team was correct.
No, it means his opponents. But no, yeah, he will.
Yeah, he will. He eventually gets it.
We'd need Chivas de Guadalajara to schedule a European tour.
Perfect.
George Nisbet is scouting Pablo Maffio, the 20-year-old Spanish right wing-back on loan at Girona from Manchester City. Pablo started in Girona's 6-3 loss to Real Madrid. He had an uneventful game and was subbed off in the 83rd minute.
End of report. Brian Kelly scouting Sander Berge, the 20-year-old Norwegian holding midfielder for Genk. Sander is still out with a torn muscle. However, transfer talk has resurfaced with Sevilla and Real Betis allegedly showing interest. Evidently, Steven Nzonzi is on his way out, and Sevilla believes Sander would be a natural replacement. Brian concurs.
Brian's biased, though.
Slightly.
Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tillemans, the 20-year-old Belgian midfielder at Monaco. Steve says, Yuri Tillemans played defensive midfield in Monaco's 2-1 win over Lille. He could have done better to close down the MLS assist, which broke the Monaco offside line, but otherwise appeared unremarkable, which is good for a D-mid, Steve thinks.
I agree. Kate Bochenek scouting Timothy Fosu-Mensah, the 20-year-old Dutch defender on loan at Crystal Palace from Manchester United. We've not heard a lot about him recently. I'm not sure if that's because he hasn't been doing much or because we just haven't been talking about Crystal Palace very much.
We're about to watch him play, possibly.
You are correct. Timothy Fosu-Mensah has been called up to the Netherlands squad under new manager Ronald Koeman for their friendlies against England and Portugal.
Quick note on that. People have been asking what TV station is the Netherlands-England friendly on?
Did you mean to say station? Because
no.
You're channeling your inner Dutch right now.
Steve McLaren.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. It's basically TBD is what I've seen it listed as. So it means it's probably not going to be on broadcast television. It might end up being on sort of ESPN3 or beIN Sports Connect or maybe Fox Soccer Match Pass. We have it. Today's Wednesday, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll know by tomorrow's show, Thursday, and we can let people know. But follow us on Twitter. We'll definitely put the information out because I'll be desperately searching for that game Friday afternoon.
I think it's on the Ocho, but I could be wrong. Julie Nishimura Jensen scouting Alen Halilovic, the 21-year-old Croatian midfielder for Las Palmas. In this weekend's La Liga game versus Deportivo, Halilovic picked up the ball in midfield, dribbled to the edge of the area, and scored in the third minute with a nicely placed left-footed shot.
Go on, Alan.
Unfortunately, Deportivo equalized later in the game, and relegation is looking more and more of a certainty for Las Palmas.
I kind of don't care about Las Palmas. I care about Alan.
Our listeners in the Canary Islands are furious with you right now. I hope you know that.
I'll probably see them soon.
I was going to say, haven't you been there?
Yeah.
Have you no loyalty, sir? Have you no sympathy?
Only to Alan. Patrick Dost is scouting Yanis Kubler, the 18-year-old German defensive midfielder for Schalke. After returning from injury, Lil Yanni reclaimed his starting spot and captaincy in the Schalke U19's 3 most recent games against the U19s of Paderborn, Dortmund and Duisburg, respectively. With Schalke potentially losing several midfielders after this season. Interesting. Oh, Goretzka's going, yeah. Mm-hmm. There may be a spot open on the senior team, with Lil Yanni's name on it. I hope he gets to wear Lil Yanni on his jersey. Also, I believe Palmas is in the Balearics.
What is that?
Balearic Islands as opposed to Canary Islands. There are lots of islands for Spain.
Sure. I will take your word for it because one of us is from the Europe and one of us is not from the Europe.
It's just Europe.
Oh, I thought the Europe was better. It sounds cleaner to me. Ben Beluga Whale Radu.
It's a great joke.
Thank you, buddy. Ben Beluga Whale Radu. Beluga Whale was what Ben put in the name field. I'm not sure what to make of that.
Okay.
But Beluga Whale is scouting Enes Unal, the 20-year-old Turkish striker for Villarreal.
Nickname, I'm going to guess?
Sure.
Yeah.
After several rocky or uneventful performances, I was going to say either or, or you can't really have both. Enos had a major impact against Atletico Madrid. He tucked away a cross in the 84th minute and poached a wayward shot in the 91st. His 2 goals led Villarreal to a 2-0 win and possibly ended Atletico's title hopes.
All right, go on, the new Hakan Şükür.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Do you know Hakan Şükür lives in America now?
No.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised to hear that, given the whole political situation with him and Erdogan.
That's exactly what's going on. Yep.
I wonder if he live. Oh, that can't look good. Hopefully he doesn't live in Pennsylvania. That's what I'm going to say there.
But hopefully he's open like a striker school. Right?
That'd be good.
Yeah, train up some young Americans how to finish.
Or have some babies here, and then they're Americans.
He joined the ranks of Tim Weah and Jonathan Klinsmann. And
Cristiano Ronaldo's kids are all born in the United States.
Is that right?
I think they were born via surrogate in the United States. I believe I am correct in saying.
How's about that? All right. World Cup 2080, here we come.
2080?
Yeah, that's the grandkids, the kids' kids.
Okay.
Skips a generation, right? Talent skips a generation. Everyone knows that.
He meant nationality. I was like, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you to everybody for submitting the scouting reports. If you'd like to join the Scout Network, totalsoccershow.com/join. If you'd like to ask a question, totalsoccershow.com/questions. If you want to know who your scout is, email me, Daryl at totalsoccershow.com. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, we will be back tomorrow with yet another Total Soccer Show.